So now let's move on to the conflict resolution steps and practicing those skills. Now, there are very clear steps in resolving a conflict, and they're identical to the ones that are used in mediation. So the first thing is the preparation. Now, if the conflict has already escalated, it may be necessary for you to just have some cool-off time. Because what's important is that the people that are involved are really willing to find a solution. If you do it with people that are angry or really not willing, it's not going to work. Now, the other thing that I suggest is to use a talking stick or a stone or some object. You can even use keys, whatever you have. And that you use that object, talking stick or keys or stone, what have you, and whoever has that in their hand, that's the person speaking. They have the floor, so to speak, like the microphone on stage. And that's then passed around, so it's very clear in a physical manner whose turn it is to talk. So after you've kind of set the stage and people are willing to be there, it may not be that they're happy about the situation, but they're willing to find a solution, which is important. You go into the first step, and that's the introduction. So you're going to explain that you're there to find a solution together and you're going to help, and that being open and honest is going to be very necessary, and that each person's going to listen without interrupting. So you want agreement on that. And knowing that everybody's going to get a turn to talk, which is why that object is so important. So whoever has the object, they're the speakers, and nobody else is going to interrupt, and then the other person is going to get that object to speak as well. So everybody gets heard. That there will be fairness, so no blaming, no accusations, no attacks, or especially not any physical violence. And also that people agree, if it's in a larger group, you have to see what the situation is, that you agree to have confidentiality. That if it's between two people, that you say, and we're not going to discuss this outside of the room, that it's just here between us, and people agree with that. So after you've kind of introduced the situation, you've set up the framework, then you can go into actually clarifying the viewpoints. And you can ask who wants to go first. If there's a disagreement about that, you can flip a coin. So whoever goes first takes that object, receives it, and they're the one that's speaking. And you ask them to speak purely from their own perspective, what they saw, what they felt, what their reasons were, that they talk about themselves. And they don't talk about the other person or why they think the other person did something, because they don't know. And then the other person has the opportunity, the other parties, depending on how many people are involved in the situation. So after it's, and you can feed back. So if I understand, John, this is how you experienced it, and you can summarize it so that John feels heard. And then when Alex speaks, you can do the same thing for Alex or whomever's in the room. So that you've gotten the story straight, so you have the story straight also, but as well that they feel heard. And from that situation, when that's all been clarified, you've got the lay of the land, and what you will find happening, which is why I love doing this process, is that people will start to think, huh, I didn't know that's what he thought. That's why you did that? It's fascinating to hear people say that, because we have our stories in our head, and we think that's why they're doing it. And when we really listen to them and their reasons, it's like, oh, wow, that's not the reason I thought he had for doing it. So that's part of the resolution process and why conflict dissolves as an illusion. Then you move into step 4, which is brainstorming. And you actually clarify, now we're going to move into brainstorming. And anything is allowed, all kinds of ideas, nothing is too stupid, everything is on the table, and you just throw it all out there. And you don't start discarding, first you just throw it all out there and everybody comes up with ideas on how to resolve the situation. Then you say, okay, now we're going to choose a solution and come to agreement. So from all the things that have been discussed, which solutions make the most sense and which ones cover everybody's needs? And there may be some discussion about that, this or that, and you discuss that until there really comes agreement on how you're going to do it. And then finally, the last phase is you arrange either a follow-up meeting or you say, so how are we going to move on from here? Who's going to do what? When is that going to take place? And what will happen next? So those are the steps of resolving conflict. As I said, you have the conflict resolution steps sheet. Thank you for your time in learning how to resolve conflict. Be well.